Welcome to Online Meeting Etiquette. In this course, we'll begin by talking about what makes up an online meeting and what are the advantages. Next, we'll discuss what needs to be done to successfully prepare to host a meeting. You'll need to understand the software you'll use to start. Meetings online, like meetings in person, need to be properly scheduled, and you will need to consider what's around you when you'll be on camera during a meeting. Once the day of the meeting arrives, you'll want to prepare the setup on your computer in advance of the start time. We'll review best practices and tips for running a successful online meeting. Probably the most daunting part of these types of meetings are the possibility of technical problems. We'll look at ways to handle these when they arise, because they will. It's also important to have a good conclusion to your meetings, so we'll look at suggestions for ending strong. And finally, we'll review participant etiquette tips to help you get the most out of online meetings you're attending. We have lots of good stuff to cover, so let's get started. Online meetings, or virtual meetings, as they're sometimes called, were rare occurrences only a few years ago, but now you find them everywhere in just about every industry. With better bandwidth for streaming video, the prevalence of computer cameras and easy-to-use software, communicating 2 floors up or around the world is simple. Most of us are comfortable with planning and conducting face-to-face business meetings. But how do we plan and deliver a successful meeting with people who are not in the same room? It can be overwhelming to be on camera, speak into a microphone, monitor the chat, and of course, handle any technical issues that inevitably come up. Oh, and let's not forget, you're probably also sharing your screen too. It's not surprising that there's been resistance to online meetings by a lot of people. But we are here to make it easier for you, because the advantages of using online meetings far outweigh the disadvantages. With a little preparation and practice, you can minimize the disadvantages and be sure to reap all the benefits. Let's talk about some of the many advantages of online meetings. First, we can see people on a call, not just hear them. This is a huge improvement over the conference call. We can share our computer screens and give presentations, or work collaboratively on a shared document. We can chat with other participants in dedicated chat rooms. We can collaborate in online whiteboards and save our work. We can meet one-on-one or present to hundreds of participants scattered across the globe. We can record our meetings to share with others or review again. Online meetings and conferences save money, allowing people in different locations to work together without expensive and disruptive travel. They also allow all of us to work equally as effectively from our desks, from our homes, or from on the road. It's important to remember that online meetings might not be the best answer in all circumstances, but they are here to stay. So let us show you how to be ready to use them effectively. Let's think about what you would do to prepare for an in-person meeting. You'd probably start by booking a conference room, then setting an agenda and inviting your attendees. Well, with an online meeting, you need to take those steps to prepare. However, you must also take the additional step of becoming familiar with the software application you'll be using. There are many online meeting options available today. Your company may provide you with software, or you may use one of the options available online. Whatever software you do choose to use, it is extremely important to become familiar with the interface and features of it before you hold a meeting. This way, when the time comes, you'll be able to focus all your attention on the meeting and not the tool. Here are some tips to help you get prepared. Hold a practice meeting or 2 with coworkers to test how everything works. Be sure to try all of the features, even if you don't plan on using them. You never know if someone might ask to start sharing their screen, and you don't want to look unprepared. If there is a call-in option, have someone dial into the meeting. Share your screen, use the chat, adjust the mic and the camera, and record a meeting. Ask for feedback on sound and video quality and your performance. Have someone else host a practice meeting and attend as a participant. This will give you insight into your attendees' experience and allow you to support them during the meeting. The presenter's interface usually is not identical to the participants. So, when you tell your participants to use the chat window for questions, it'll be helpful if you can also tell them exactly where you can find it on the interface. Find out if others at your company have used the software previously. They can be valuable resources for tips and tricks on running a successful meeting. If all this sounds daunting, don't worry. After your first couple of online meetings, it will become routine and you'll be as comfortable running a meeting online as you are in person. Generally speaking, online meetings are scheduled ahead of time, and there are a few things you can do when scheduling your online meeting to help make it flow smoothly. First, when possible, schedule your online meeting well in advance, and be sure to send an official invite with links to the meeting and dial-in numbers if available. Typically, your online meeting software will generate these invitations for you, or at least have the information you can copy and paste into an email invitation. When scheduling your meeting, be sure to keep in mind time differences between all your locations. When everyone is meeting virtually instead of in person, it's easy to forget that Steve is located in San Francisco's office and 3 hours behind you. Maybe an 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time isn't the best option. If the software offers a test site for attendees to test their equipment, include that information in your invitation. This is especially helpful if your company is in the process of implementing online meetings, or if you are inviting people from outside your organization who may be unfamiliar with your particular meeting software. If you aren't sure all your participants are familiar with your meeting software, it's a good idea to ask them in the invitation to join the meeting 5 to 10 minutes early. This will give them time to download software if needed and test their headsets or cameras. Finally, you should expect to spend the first 5 to 10 minutes of the meeting handling issues and questions. Be sure to plan for that in your meeting length. By asking people to join the meeting early, you can limit the impact on the meeting by assisting the early joiners as they log in. It's also important to know that, just like in-person meetings, you can start online meetings spontaneously with coworkers. Depending on the tool you're using, you may still need to access the scheduling feature and set up a meeting, and then send out the appropriate links. These types of spontaneous meetings typically are held with fewer people. For larger groups, it's always better to plan ahead and have a formal invitation sent out a few days beforehand. You'll want to set a professional scene for your meetings, so it's important to think about where you are. If you are hosting a meeting from your office, look around. What's behind you? Can your desk be seen? Does the bookcase need to be neatened up? Is there enough light? Consider this space your stage and make sure it's a clean, professional environment. After looking around, if you realize your office isn't a good fit, consider using a conference room or small meeting room or even someone else's office. Here are some key things to keep in mind when setting your stage. Start by uncluttering your desk, bookcase, or any area that can be seen in the camera angle. Even if the clutter on your desk cannot be seen, a clear desk will keep you focused. For your participants, the less distracting a background, the better. Lighting is important. Side or indirect lighting is best, and you can add an extra lamp on your desk to help with this. You'll want to avoid backlighting or ever-changing light, like from a window on a partly sunny day. Also, avoid lighting from below. It's best to have some distance between you and your background, so don't position yourself too close to a wall behind you. Invest in a good camera and calibrate it according to the manufacturer's instructions. For the position, you want the camera slightly above your eye level and directly in front of you. If the camera is built into your laptop, try placing it on a box or under some other stable object to help you get the camera closer to eye level. You are going to be on camera, so dress appropriately. This might not be a problem if you are joining the meeting from your office, but one of the benefits of online meetings is that we can run them from our home offices. So, even when presenting from home, make sure you are professionally dressed from top to bottom. Don't assume you'll spend the entire meeting seated. You might have an unexpected reason to stand up during the meeting, so be sure to change out of those pajama bottoms too. If you will be sharing information on your computer, declutter your Windows desktop and only have open the windows you will be using during the presentation. Flipping through dozens of unnecessary things in the middle of the meeting will make you look unprepared. A lot of folks use 2 monitors nowadays. If you are one of them, be sure you know which monitor the meeting software is registering as active, and then move all of your necessary open windows to that monitor. Take a look at your computer desktop before you start the meeting. Are there lots of messy icons, possibly even some confidential documents you don't want seen hanging out there? Is your background wallpaper professional? Or is it a shot of you salsa dancing during your last vacation? You might want to consider moving all of your desktop icons temporarily into a single folder and changing your background image to a solid color. You can always bring back your salsa moves when the meeting ends. If you use any online chat applications, turn them off completely or set them to Do Not Disturb mode. There's nothing more embarrassing than being interrupted mid-meeting with an incoming chat message, especially if the person begins the chat with, "Dude, you in the Thai place at noon?" Close your door to avoid unwanted interruptions. Put out a sign, "Meeting in progress," to help limit interruptions and mute your office and your cell phones. If you are presenting from home, be sure to take care of possible noises and distractions like pets, children, the house phone, or the doorbell. If you cannot make sure these things are silent, you might want to consider finding an alternate location from which to present. How you start the meeting and how you handle questions and issues during the meeting will set the tone for future meetings and overall acceptance of them at your company. Think of it as a performance. Whatever happens, you must make the experience comfortable for the attendees. So, how do we go about doing that? Start by logging in early for the meeting and test all settings again. Test your mic and volume settings. It's not uncommon for everything to work out perfectly and then fail the day of the meeting. Software gets automatically updated, patches are instilled overnight, or changes to settings are made for other programs without realizing they will affect your meeting software too. Whatever the possible cause, try to alleviate the potential for issues by checking everything one last time before you start. Check the camera angles and lighting. Make sure there is nothing interfering with the mic. Paper rustling, keyboard strokes, squeaky chair noises, pen clicking, or noise from hallways or open windows can all be very distracting during the meeting. A good headset with a microphone or lapel mic will cut down on extraneous noise. Hopefully by this point, all technical issues have been sorted and everyone has arrived. Let's look now at some tips that can help you when the meeting is underway. If video conferencing is new to your participants, you'll want to wait for everyone, or nearly everyone, to arrive before starting the meeting. If video conferencing is routine for your attendees, it's best to start meetings on time to set the standard for future meetings. Like in-person meetings, the more often you start late, the more often participants will arrive late. Be sure to welcome everyone formally and introduce yourself, any co-leaders, and the topic. It's always a good idea, whether a meeting is online or in person, to do a brief overview of the agenda and timelines. If there will be breaks, let everyone know now when they will be held. Depending on the type of meeting, it may be a good idea to set a specific Q&A time and establish with the group a parking lot for off-topic questions or questions that need to be answered later. It's also a great idea to provide an email address for questions that may arise after the meeting. Some participants may not be able to post a question or might be shy about speaking. A good way to encourage participation in smaller meetings is to ask everyone to contribute a short check-in or introduction. This does take time, but creates a warmer, more intimate environment and can break down any awkwardness people might have about speaking up. In larger meetings, you can prepare poll questions for everyone to answer with a yes, no, or multiple choice to create engagement. You can also use the chat to have everyone check in and acknowledge each post as it comes in. Asking questions functions as an icebreaker and allows people to get used to responding. Large meetings can be chaotic, but here's the good news. You control the microphones. In large meetings, you will want to mute everyone. You can tell the participants to post questions in the chat or request to be unmuted. With smaller meetings, it is your choice to allow microphones or not. Usually, the substance of the meeting will help determine if you should mute all or not at all. If you do go with open mics for all, be sure to warn call-in attendees to mute their phones unless they want to speak. Phones pick up a lot of background noise, and attendees can be disruptive without realizing it. It is really helpful, especially with larger-sized meetings, to have a list of participants handy or paper to jot down for easy reference later. This can be helpful as not everyone will be listed correctly in the roster of attendees that may appear in the software. You may have someone ask an off-topic question or a question to which you are unsure of the answer. A great way to handle this is by creating a virtual parking lot, essentially a running list of these unanswered questions to which you can return either later in the meeting or in a follow-up email afterwards. There are some tips that are handy to know for ways to adjust your presentation skills when online. When asking a question of the larger group, pause longer than usual. With time lag, unmuting mics, and shyness, it may take longer to receive an answer. It helps to get participants used to answering questions by asking simple questions or yes/no questions that they can answer in the chat, and then you can respond to the answers and tease out a discussion on the results. When asked a question, repeat the question before answering. This assures that all the participants have heard the question and that you have understood the question correctly. If you are presenting from a conference room in which other people are also present for the meeting, while others are joining online, it is imperative you control the crosstalk and side conversations. Not only does this exclude the remote users, it makes it difficult for them to hear the discussions and presentations. When you have smaller groups, encourage people to use their mics. A robust discussion is equally as possible online as it is in person, but you might need to break the ice and get the dialogue flowing, especially if all the participants do not know one another. One important tip that bears repeating is to allow others to finish talking, and then pause a second before responding. Mics can cut in and out, and there's often a small delay in the audio. Waiting a second before you speak can prevent you from talking over others. You'll want to actively monitor the chat for questions, or another great option is to enlist a moderator to monitor the chat for you and who will answer posted questions and comments. The moderator can also help you manage the off-topic questions in the parking lot. Have everything you need laid out neatly and right at your fingertips. Excess typing, searching for files, or rustling through papers during the meeting will make you appear unprepared and unprofessional. Start practicing these tips, and your online meetings will be just as dynamic and effective as in-person meetings. There will be technical difficulties sooner or later, no matter how much testing and preparation you do. Some of the issues that you or your attendees may have are hardware, software issues, connection issues, sound or microphone issues, streaming issues and lag times, drop calls, participants, accommodating call-in participants who don't have access to video. So, what can you do to be prepared? First, stay cool and calm. Have help on speed dial. Let the IT team or an assistant work behind the scenes to solve issues. Mute or go offline to discuss problems and solutions. Have a backup plan in place for delaying, canceling, or recording the meeting and distributing the recording after the meeting. Keep participants informed of delays and give them a time the delayed meeting will restart. Then either start at that time or check back in and give further updates. Debrief with IT after the meeting to find answers to the issues and prepare for the next meeting. Do not let one bad meeting make you give up on online meetings altogether. There is a learning curve for all involved. Just keep practicing. For really large or important meetings, consider having a colleague be your assistant and manage all of the technical issues for you. That will allow you to focus on the rest of the attendees and keep things running smoothly. And remember, always have a disaster plan in place, such as an option to switch to just a conference call, or to perhaps reschedule altogether if necessary. Sometimes technical difficulties cannot be fixed in time, so be ready and flexible. Good meeting practices are just as important for online meetings as they are for a standard meeting. So let's not forget these common practices for ending a meeting. Review any action items and parking lot items. Thank everyone for attending. Be sure to end on time. Follow up after the meeting with minutes or notes, and be sure to include any action items. If you made promises about sending out additional information or documents, follow through on it. Finally, if you recorded the session, make it available after the meeting, and be sure to inform everyone where they can access the recording. You may need to set some standards for your participants as well. It takes a bit of practice for a group to function well in online meetings, but implementing these suggestions will help your meeting run smoother and more efficiently. When attending online meetings, always log in a few minutes early to make sure you can access the meeting. Test your sound and mic levels, then make sure you are muted. Locate the chat and other controls so you are ready. Mute your office phone and cell phone. Close your office door, if you have one. If you are in a cube, let others around you know you're about to start a meeting and can't be interrupted. A colleague of mine hangs an "in a meeting" sign to her cubicle entrance when she's in an online meeting. Simple, but effective. If your company uses online chat, consider moving your setting to Do Not Disturb on that application as well. In nearly all online meeting software, there is a chat feature as well. Make use of it to ask questions during a meeting. Some presenters may even direct you to do so with your questions if the group is large. If they cannot answer all of the questions they receive, presenters will have a record of the question in the chat and can follow up afterwards. If you are asking a question verbally, introduce yourself and then ask the question. It's a good idea to wait for replies before speaking again, as there is often a time lag in the audio when streaming. Try not to talk over people. Mics cut in and out when more than one person is talking at a time. Pause a second or two longer than you would during an in-person conversation to make certain others have finished speaking. Do not multitask. It's tempting to read and answer all your emails during a meeting, but you will find yourself missing valuable information, or you might miss a question directed to you. Inform the presenter immediately if there are any audio or visual issues. If your connection is not stable, ask to have the session recorded, and then follow up if you need to. If using online meeting technology is new to your organization, Consider adding some or all of these tips to your meeting invitation as a reminder to your participants. Online meetings are everywhere, and they're only gaining in popularity. Becoming comfortable and adept at presenting online will make it easier for you and your colleagues to interface in this manner. Online meetings can help keep a scattered team unified and informed, building tighter relationships. Try to encourage remote coworkers to hold one-on-one video calls rather than constantly emailing or texting each other. By making video conferences part of your office culture and following the guidelines suggested in this course, you and your coworkers will be sure to become pros at presenting online.